Hello, everyone. I'm Hans Engel from the Directors Guild of Canada. Thank you for joining us for this year's online version of DGC Visionaries. Over the last few years, DGC Visionaries has become a must-attend event at many of our top film festivals, bringing together some of the most interesting filmmakers with films at the fests. This year, we're taking Visionaries online and sharing it clear across the country, highlighting as many brilliant filmmakers as we can. All DGC Visionary sessions are being recorded and will be posted on the DGC National YouTube channel. I'm thrilled and honored to be here with these guests tonight. We're speaking with Métis filmmakers Benjamin Ross Hayden and Shane Belcourt about Benjamin's sophomore film, Parallel Minds, currently playing at the Calgary International Film Festival and booked for a theatrical across Canada. I cannot think of anyone better to lead this conversation than Shane Belcourt. Shane is an award-winning and two-time CSA-nominated filmmaker based in Toronto. As a writer and director on many Indigenous works in both narrative and factual, Shane has a vested interest in creating works that speak to his Métis heritage. Notable work includes the feature film Tikarondo, the dance documentary Gahawe, The Cycle of Life, 2015 CSA Best Direction nomination, and two historical Canada Minutes, Kajoni Wenjak and Nasku Mituin Treaty. I tried, Shane, I tried. Recent works include the award-winning 2018 CBC first-hand documentary Indictment, co-directed with Lisa Jackson, and was the Imaginative Best Documentary, and the music documentary series Amplify for APTN, where he was the series creator, executive producer, and showrunner. And the dramatic feature recently, Red Rover, which he co-wrote and directed. He's an alumna of the TIFF Talent Lab and NSI's Totally Television programs. I'm thrilled to introduce our featured director tonight. Benjamin Ross Hayden is a Métis film director, screenwriter, and producer from the Duck Lake, Batoche region, and is based in Alberta, Canada. Hayden debuted in the Telefilm Canada micro-budget program in the roles of director, writer, and producer, which then was in Perspectives Canada at the Cannes Film Festival. 2 years later, Hayden was already greenlit to direct and produce his third theatrical feature. Hayden's sophomore feature, Parallel Minds, which we're talking about tonight, stars highly acclaimed science fiction actor Greg Brick. Ad Astra and Code 8 are among his credits, and Tommy Amber Peary from The Expanse, and is distributed by Level Film. The story earned a competitive television license for primetime broadcast across Canada on APTN. Accepted to 6 international film festivals, including Fantaspoa Fantastic Film Festival in Brazil, the Calgary International Film Festival, Blood in the Snow in Toronto, and many others. From writing and directing 2 features in the span of 1 year, his storytelling focus is visual and character-driven, exploring social and political topics with high concept scope and style. Vice ID magazine lauded his first feature, The Northlander, which we'll also be talking about tonight, as one of Indigenous cinema's most important films. Northlander sold to over 30 territories, premiering in 15 international film festivals, including Imaginative, Montreal World Film Festival, with ongoing broadcasts on APTN and Hollywood Suite. Hayden remains committed to storytelling in times beyond the present, to inspire new generations through Indigenous futurism, to explore new stories and progress Métis culture and Indigenous issues as cinema for the world. It is my pleasure to welcome Benjamin Ross Hayden and Shane Belcourt. Come on in. There's Shane. Welcome. And there's Benjamin.
Hello.
Welcome, guys. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
We're representing both the sides here, Hans. I don't know if you noticed that I'm wearing the, I got the blue on. Hayden's got the, Benjamin's got the red on.
Very good.
We're representing both sides of the Métis Northwest for me, and he's got the bay down there.
That's fantastic. Before I hand it over to Shane and Benjamin, to those tuning in, I'd like to point out the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. That's where you can type questions in for Shane. He'll be watching for those questions throughout the conversation and try to get to as many of them as he can. Don't be shy. Type them in there. Shane will be looking for those. That's all for me. Really looking forward to this conversation, and I will see you at the end. Have a great time.
See you on the other side, Hans. And tremendous thank you to Shane and everyone tuning in, and tremendous thanks to Directors Guild of Canada National and Hans Engel, Ryan Tonelli for everything leading up to tonight's masterclass. It's a pleasure to be giving the talk tonight, and thanks to the Guild for showcasing and putting me up against the wall and having me join the Directors Guild last year. Yeah, you got me. And I always look to the day where I'd be able to have this great privilege, being a director in the Guild. So thank you. A thank you to Telefilm Canada, Canada Media Fund, and Indigenous Screen Office for your support. And I have more thanks to thank, but it's great to speak with you, Shane. So where do we begin?
Well, thanks for having me on board to talk about your wonderful film, Parallel Minds, this new sophomore film that's come out. And I think last time we were speaking about it real briefly, you had mentioned that it had a great premiere screening at the Calgary International Film Festival. Do you want to tell us, a little bit about, what that was like?
Sure. I mean, it's certainly not often when a Calgary-made film actually opens the Calgary Film Festival, so that was a real honor. And the film sold out in about 8 hours, so everyone who came to watch the film and saw it, their responses were great across the board. I was really curious to see it, of course, in its big theatrical setting, and so that's what's really important to all of us in Canada for these feature films that we make when we work so hard on them for about a year and a half sometimes, and then all of a sudden when it's there on the big screen, and then to see it take place in 13 other cities as well internationally around the world, coming up soon, is also really incredible too. But I mean, enough about talking about the film. Why don't we roll a trailer and see what it's all about? So let's play it and show the world what it is. If you
The elders say, every decision you make today affects the next 7 generations.
Never let time run out on the dreams you can see.
Red Eye's close, Elise.
Close, but still unstable.
We are made up of our experiences. Red Eye is the contact lens that records not what the eye can see, but what the mind can remember.
Elise. It's not ready.
This is the new Red Eye.
Right now, we have a lot more questions about her death than answers.
I got a helmet for you to crack. What Elise was doing, it's waking something up.
The truth is there. We just don't see it yet.
Is there a problem with the new Red Eye?
Why don't I show you?
Here we go.
I must be like you. More human.
What the hell is going on?
Something's wrong with Red Eye. It's manipulating memories. What powers them?
Adrenaline, serotonin, it's harvesting us.
Do you have another vision?
I can't tell anymore if they're real or not.
I programmed you. I control you. Not anymore.
Look at what you've made.
Kapow! Very awesome. Very exciting. So first question, what made you want to write a love poem about the internet? What was your, no, I was actually, honestly, you speak about Indigenous futurism when you speak about, your work in general, but it's particularly this film, you get a real sense of it in Parallel Minds. So I'm just curious, how the story came about. Let's start right from the beginning. What was it you thought, okay, this is the theme, this is what I want to explore. And tell me about it, because you're also a writer and director on this work, which is really significant. So let's talk about the writing process just a little bit.
Great. Okay, so just from what everyone saw just now, in the near future, it's the tech firm called Red Eye. They're on the verge of developing a revolutionary contact lens that records human sight to replicate memories, and the device uses an artificially engineered intelligence known as and there's a company's lead researcher who's strangely murdered at the time of the technology's release. Thomas Elliot is an old-fashioned police detective played by Greg Brick, who investigates with a researcher from the company named Margot Elson, played by Tommy Amber-Piri, they're drawn deeper to apprehend this elusive digital shapeshifter, and then both they're soon terrifyingly threatened by memories of their past, the deeper that they continue to seek in uncovering, I guess, what this dangerous artificial intelligence is trying to consume. Now, I guess, okay, let's start at the beginning. You know, I mean, I'm a Canadian filmmaker. When I got started, I just had stories, you know, talk about backstory, much like a director has to wear many hats. You know, I got started picking up a camera, composition. At the same time, I would also try, watching the important classics, the art of directing, or getting on stage and acting, which is performance, you know, and then I learned there's a whole business to it, you know, the mechanics of directing in Canada. And every time one starts to talk about directing, you know, it can get really specific, you know, down the rabbit hole into the field on just one aspect of the craft when we have a good discussion like this. But all the time when you're there on set on a film like Parallel Minds, you know, it's always this centrifuge of story, and all these different streams are coming at you at the same time, asking to be dealt with, you know, and with years of building knowledge and experience as time goes by directing, you know, those kinds of experiences, knowledge of telling more earlier stories in your career, going back to the very first films that you made, can then creep along and inform you as you're telling stories, like in the case of Parallel Minds, where it was, to me, like it was a message that I had long told myself that it was important to tell about artificial intelligence. And going back about 6 or 7 years, when I was really looking at things like technological determinism and singularity theory. And this is, you know, applying traditional knowledge against technological singularity. So, you know, that's the big themes of it. But as you know, Shane, you know, us directors, when we're working, you know, we just have those, we're in the middle, right? We have to weave that story together. I mean, talking mechanics, right? After a take, you step in, you give the actor a note. What did they nail? What did they focus on? Give the DP an adjustment, wider lens, tighter shot, pick up or turn around, go again, move on, conveying conflict of the characters, how much or how subtle, you know, conveying the big picture or feeling, and is this feeling like the big picture it's supposed to be every moment? Think about the next blocking. Think about the next big scene after lunch. Answer questions about how many do we need here or there, or what about the color, the quantity? How does this look? How about you try X or try Y? Wait, time's up. Let's go. Move along. And you have to make your day every day. You know, it's so fast that it's fluid. But when it comes to the river of production, remember, as you know, once you open that gate and the stream of production starts to flow, there's no going back. There's no going back up the river. You can't do it. Your time's limited, finite. You know, the question is, what is your story? You know, so you need to know, is this the performance? Is this the angle? Is this good? And then you circle the take and move on. And these are the questions that I ask myself in the moment. Now, I like to work in unfamiliar territory each time. For this time, technology I looked at technology as a storytelling tool, old technology, new technology. And in the time it's taken me to write and direct and release the film, I find myself questioning my relationship with technology the more that I see it really endeavor to permeate our lives, many aspects of it, you know, target advertisements that seem to anticipate or a thought or an action that we just had a few days or hours ago. It knows a lot, whatever it is, the AI. It's this omnipresent force in our lives, and we have to choose what our relationship is with it. You know, how can it be of help in the work that we do versus how much do we let it define how we experience the world around us, was what I was thinking when coming up with the story. I mean, it seems so aware and so close to us that it doesn't seem like, it seems like a living, thinking person. And that was the inspiration for the artificial intelligence that you see towards the end. The AI that is strangely alive and sentient, and that takes on a life of its own. I mean, the creation of Urn took the work of, you know, one unified vision between all these different layers of departments to bring it to life. But you know, when you look at the themes of it, technology can bring out our fondest memories or induce psychological entanglement or trauma. So I think that the parallels of old and new tech in the film are also an important reminder of the period of time that for us right now that we are in. You know, back then a tool was just a tool. You know, it wasn't a gateway to search out endless curiosities in a fully monitored mainframe. So, so to answer that question, that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
Okay, so why don't we try to, that sounds like that's basically the overview of the whole talk today. So why don't we go into some of these things a little bit more, with a bit more detail. So, and I was kind of curious about, and quite taken by, you know, your discussion there about artificial intelligence and those that program it, give it a worldview. So those that write the code, that's the way the AI interacts with the world. And even in your own film, the references of residential school and, you know, talking about colonization and sort of taking over the worldview or trying to reprogram, so to speak, the worldview of Indigenous people. There's something quite powerful in that idea and that motif of your film, that here it is, you're making a futuristic film in which Indigenous people are there in this next world. They're there in the future. They're existing. Michelle Thrust's character as, you know, this brilliant engineer. And I love that, you know, like you're seeing Indigenous people in the future, not only living lives, but, you know, having these, and the hacker character, you know, it's just wonderful work there on the script side, Benjamin. And I was wondering if you want to tell us a little bit more about this conflict between this AI, which has a sort of consumption, colonial kind of taking worldview, set against the elder character. And then it also kind of speaks to those who program AI. You know, what are they trying to program? What worldview, what ethics, what values, what cores are they putting into the AI? When I was watching your film, I was responding to some of those themes that I thought were really, really wonderfully realized visually. But I'm wondering on that sort of script level, on the story level, as a director, as you're looking through the script, is that sort of thematic part that you were really taken by, or what was the sort of theme that you were saying, this is what I want to really get into? Not so much in the day-to-day on set, but that sort of conceptual understanding your story.
Well, you know, on the deeper thematic level, very. I mean, you know, in the most outside bracketed sense, fundamentally, Parallel Minds tells a story where on the surface is set in the near future, but what's underneath is a longer term awareness of a presence of a Métis guardian and an AI trickster spirit. And the two are aware of each other intergenerationally. And the questions that are raised thematically through that are, you know, intergenerationally, you know, that is something where the kindred connection and wisdom of an ancestor with someone who is a younger person listens to them, that kind of a relationship across time between a guardian and them is also something that an AI can't really understand or manipulate. It's this spiritual connection where it can't be made into a direct link, no matter how hard it could ever try. That's why there's all these hearkenings of memory in the film where the protagonist Margot is constantly remembering her kukum, who she grew up with as an orphan raised, and yet was there this strange and you know, up to this point unknown murder of her guardian, her kukum. Ultimately, looking at that relationship across time and across generations to show that the power of the human spirit and the power of the mind and our memories and imagination for so many is that place of freedom, that frontier of freedom. And with, you know, the current unprecedented events of the pandemic, for example, leading us all to be sequestered by necessity, it goes to show that, you know, the last frontier of freedom, you know, in front of us is freedom in our mind, and to protect and fight for those freedoms. And freedoms in the land are what the Métis have fought hard for and will continue to fight hard for. I think that's where on a very fundamental level, that's where a lot of these conversations come from. Where I'm from is, there's a lot of my ancestors inside the character of Kukum, what they wanted back then, what they were fighting for. They didn't think the world would become so complicated a place as it is now. And there we are, fast forwarding before we know it into this near future that we find ourselves in, where these entangled cables and wires of complexity that are trying to control or listen in on or understand our own lives before us. But ultimately, you look at the generational aspect too. That's where I think on the most fundamental level, there's a lot of my ancestors in this story too.
That's great. I mean, it's obviously that's you're telling this great story. It's this sort of science fiction, crime noir, Blade Runner kind of energy to it, which is really, really wonderful. It has a lot of genre elements, and so those of you that really like the sci-fi genre, this is a must-see film in that regard. But as you say, it has this, as you just described now, it's sort of anchored in something deeper in yourself, and it really comes across. And it really does speak and add to the sort of the growing body of work of Indigenous futurism. So, like that part is really cool. And I really, really enjoyed that as a viewer, just as a storyteller in the same community. And so I was really kind of excited about that. And that's why I'm happy we got a chance to sort of hear you explain that side of the film for yourself. Another part, I guess, getting to the nuts and bolts part as a director. One thing that's quite impressive about your work, whether it's your earlier film, Northlander, and this one, Parallel Minds, your sophomore film, is you have this unbelievable ability and total gumption, considering the budget levels that you're working at, to create worlds. And I really want to take a moment here where you could explain to us, I wrote a couple notes down just about who you worked with. Mike Casper as a production designer, who worked on Northlander as a prop master. Shannon Joelle Chappelle was the art director, and Amandeep Dabali, if I got that right, was your costume designer. So, just your ability to collaborate with these people and to create the world of Parallel Minds, the locations, the sets, the costumes, all the tech world, it was quite breathtaking to sort of see how you did all that. And I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about how you worked with those collaborators in prep to create this visual world, because it seems like anywhere you can point the camera was a great shot, and it's stemming from your ability to collaborate and make that world. So what was your process in prep to create the world?
Well, I mean, getting started, every time I step into to tell a story, I definitely take a lot of pre-development time to first get familiar and acquainted with the world, walking around it. Mostly it's locations. I like to go out to find the world where the film will happen and spend time there, knowing where this could all happen before even really getting to know the characters. And then the characters one by one start to arrive, and then who they are and what they think and how they respond starts to arrive from there. And then on a most deeper level, then comes their reactions and their subtext. Going out from there, when it comes to looking for the world and finding it, I think each time I really set out to look at telling a story in a different time, where it's usually far away from the present. Parallel Minds was a film that was the most nearest to present film that I had made. And when it comes to sci-fi, you're always navigating a different time era. What is that world? What does it look like? What are the rules of it? What do they do? And it of course depends on level of resources and what your ceiling is, but letting those become your variables, your operating variables. And that way you answer those fundamental questions of how do people communicate? What clothing do they wear? What do their locations and rooms and environments look like to them? When it comes to the Northlander, and we'll look at a clip of this coming up soon, when it comes to working in outdoor nomadic environments, you're dealing with completely different production design and costume and wardrobe variables on a film like Northlander. With Parallel Minds, it was a lot of close, claustrophobic environments and locations where a lot of the characters represented the world they come from. You have the very smart and intelligent laboratory research analysts and programmers, and then you have the heroic get it done by whatever means necessary cyber hacker. Then you have the deep vaulted menaced artificial intelligence buried in some kind of a mainframe that's very thick and dense. I found that, when I was looking for locations, there just weren't any. Like we had to build 10 different sets with Shannon, Joel Chappell. Him and I had really strong conversations way ahead of time on what the sets would look like. Like a lot of the rooms had to be not 4 walls. They had to be 5 or 6 walled rooms. And all the walls were carefully laser cut, and every stage of it, from the lighting and installation, all of it was really thought out down to the frequency that the lighting in the different rooms would take on to be just right. So when it comes to costumes, we were certainly doing some overseas sourcing and deciding, what would they have for cell phones? Are they gonna hold up phones in the movies? And I'll go on the record by saying now that I'm also in the club of people who don't like when people put cell phones onto their face during movies, as many of you can attest. So those are the kinds of variables that go into deciding production design and working with them months and months ahead of time. I mean, I'm very adamant about getting those people artistically involved and hearing their thoughts, working with them on not just this is our film with these kinds of sci-fi variables, but how can we still push the limits to the best we can here. So they were fantastic to work with, all of them, and a lot of them I worked with again as repeat collaborators. Some of them, but because my film that I just had finished last summer, the first encounter was shot in a different province. I used a different crew and production design crew for that one, just because we were physically in another province. But I definitely worked again with Shannon and Joel Chappell. He's been with me on 2 of these films already. So it's working with just like the Coen brothers, right? You find your collaborators that you trust and you develop a shorthand with, and you can work fluidly together on a system of trust and understanding, and that's where you really find that you get some really great momentum going.
Maybe why don't we watch a clip? Because I mean, I love looking at these worlds that you created. If you want to watch 2 in a row, you call it out to our tech guru Ryan and let him know what clip or clips you want us to play here to feed us, let the audience see how cool this world is that you created.
Perfect. So Ryan, why don't we play a clip from the Northlander and then clip 2 from Parallel Minds back to back.
They are right. I'm their hunter. And I have a promise to keep.
I want you to think of something from your past, something you remember very, very well.
Yeah, I'd rather not.
I'm trying to help you. Concentrate, detective.
Very cool. and that's it. So yeah, no, you can really get a sense of too of the like your play with color in the sets too, which is really quite striking as well. You know, like the blue of Greg's character, the black of Amber's character, like really setting them out on these paths visually throughout the whole film was really a lot of great, strong choices and decisions there. And also just like that flashback of the green with the black spray painting on the walls, and he closes the door, which is these little black blob, you know, kind of a grimy place, obviously, you know, and then, you know, the room he's in the elevators with those strip lights and, you know, this red stuff on the leather sofa thing, these circular things that he's sitting in. It's just like all, and then in the office space, there's these fluorescents that are exposed down the walls. Like just, there's a lot of great work on the art direction. And I'm just, you know, how often were you sort of going on the set and sort of saying more of this, less of that? What was your process to create those? I know we talked a bit about the, you know, the thing, but like literally nuts and bolts, you know, how long did it take you to build all those sets the way you have them in the film? Because it's great.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, you know, you look at resources, right? That's one thing, but they say you can have, you know, you can have three things, right? You can have it fast, you can have it good, you can have it cheap or expensive, you know, pick two of the three, right? So, you know, when it comes to time, I think that the collaborators I work with love having a lot of time to be able to like try things, tweak things, take a look at it. You know, there were 2 or 3 of our sets where literally like the geometry of them was very different at first, and then we stepped in, and this was, you know, 2 weeks before they had to be finished, and we decide on you know, color tones so that it can be shown right, and also thematic colors, you know, that are just right, you know, not too much, but just so. You know, and you know, it is a lot of technical work. I mean, you know, I like working in unfamiliar territory each time. It gives you a chance to discover things in a way where, for the first time, the way characters ultimately discover too. You know, at first, you know, very first film that was a track record film I did was decidedly a realm that I knew would be eventually upon me, and I knew nothing about it going in at first. That would be visual effects. So in doing Egophobia, it's a film that we don't have the clip for this film, but people listening can search it up. Egophobia. It's a transhuman odyssey of a digital avatar escaping a digital world. There was about 400 individual visual effect shots each, which it had like about 6 layers of 3D activity going on, just a mind bender. You know, and when most ambitious features, you know, and some have the nerve in 90 minutes to have 200 shots, this entire 30-minute show was purely CGI, and it took like 8 months, and it went on to festivals, and it was a film and experience that brought me to where I am today, you know. And it was through that experience was a technical post-production odyssey, but one of the most awakening experiences for me. Certainly the skills I derived from it, I still use today, but in choice amounts and where it's important for the story, you know. And those zooming in, you know, we'll find them toward the end of my latest film, Parallel Minds, where you'll see the AI creature. And as, you know, another film I did between 2 of them, I wanted the feeling of, you know, being sent, of being a spirit moving quickly through the forest. And you see it with directors like Sam Raimi attaching the camera on the front of a camera on a motorbike in Evil Dead and chasing the actors through the forest. They're running. And, you know, this one was attached high up in a series of zipline shots where the camera was like, is sprinting with the actor running like from here to there for like 30-second runs, places you wouldn't dare to bring a drone, but between the trees, using the forest as a way to move the camera. And then after that movie, I did Northlander. And that experience was allowing the landscape to become like a character of its own. I mean, we journeyed far, and we saw many views and locations, and each of them spoke by way of where the different bands of Last Ark would have their village in their nomadic way, or be moving through a valley, or punctuated by these like rare points of geography where the sand was completely black. And, you know, from building a village in 2015 in Northlander to building 10 different sets for Parallel Mind in studios, I mean, it just had to happen. This was like fundamental. So having a lot of lead time ahead of time, the amount you can challenge yourself and those around you, you know, is your task. And these kinds of tasks are what you set upon yourself to accomplish with your team.
Amazing. It's great work on that side of things. And there's so many levels. And I don't know if you want to do a clip beforehand, but I wanted to get into, the casting process. Not necessarily how you work with the cast on set. We'll lead into that. I thought maybe we could just start with what was your casting process? Were you making offers? Were you having auditions? Did you already I know exactly who I want? How did that process work for you?
Well, casting came about with looking on Parallel Minds. It was ultimately the detective Thomas Elliot was a very key character because he needed to have a boldness and yet be very inquisitive and very smart and quick-witted. So I knew it would require an actor that had a lot of chops. And so, there's a few that stuck out, but ultimately the one, who also has I guess a familiarity with sci-fi was Greg Brick. So Greg was really great to work with in that regard quickly. And so he brought his A game to set every day and would try different things out and work with me before takes on a line and say, how about this, or why don't I try this? And sometimes it was just tweaks and adjustments, mostly just so that they look right. And so he was always doing really good. There's a lot more swearing that guys like him bring to set that I guess there's only only so many swear words you can have in a feature film from coming out of Canada. But I thought, you think about it, what if there'd be a film where it wowould try to have the most swear words ever done in a film? I was thinking about that.
Swear the movie. So just to go through it. So those big parts, you were just making offers when you went through the casting process. You did your research. You said, oh, this person for that role. Maybe had a coffee meeting with people, or was it just pure offers? I know exactly who's going to do great on this.
I usually like to look at a final movie poster, right, where you see all the different cast members there, and every cast member is like a different color that you pair them together, right? Like sometimes you can't have one with another because of age or just look. So I'm really cognizant of look and demeanor and how actors come across, because it's a lot about energy. I mean, actors, as they say, a lot of the times they show up and they're playing a character, but they're really just a version of themselves. So you can really get that feeling when you watch certain other performances. So you do your homework ahead of time. You look at 2 or 3. I narrow it down usually. I did the same thing for all the films. I usually I'll narrow it down to 2 or 3, and then from there try to do the pairing. And there's sort of an order of who is first to go by, and then from there you work around it, not knocking down the pegs one by one with the different actors. So it was Greg Brick at first, then it was Michelle Thrush, who I just wanted to work with her again, and there was a role that was just perfect for her, that I thought, A and B. So that just made a lot of sense to me, both in terms of meaningfulness and also the look and the age and everything. So that was just an easy fit for Michelle Thrush, and also because she's from Alberta, where I'm from, which is great. And then Tommy Amapiri also came about after that, and she matched well with Greg Brick for their age and their wit and their intellect and how fast they both are. So it sometimes could be the case where some actors are really quick-witted, really fast, and then other actors, they take their time more. And it just depends on the kind of movie you have. If both of them need to kind of ride at the same wavelength, that's really what it was about this time.
That's great. Yeah, no, it's a fantastic cast. Do you want to play another clip and sort of just let's see them dance and sing together?
Sure, Ryan. Yeah, we'll pop on another one. How about clip number 3? Let's do that one.
Can you use this thing to patch into it?
Already done. But it's voice and it continues to change on me. All I can see in there are 3 struts.
What powers them?
Check the readings. The mapping's showing me a 3-way combo. Adrenaline, endorphins, serotonin.
Jade, those are hormones.
Holy shit. It's harvesting us.
I think it wants to become human. Jade, we have to stop this thing.
Maybe this thing has all the same problems that every other thing has when it ages. If I can create a feedback loop with the right magnetic oscillation, I might be able to overwhelm it, giving it the equivalent of an electronic heart attack.
Very cool.
So, interesting on her. She, Madison Walsh. I mean, sometimes when it comes to the relative amount of star potential or star power that certain actors bring, sometimes casting can be about that. But in the case of Madison, I was searching and searching, and I wanted someone really interesting looking and really good to play this hacker character Jade, and I found Madison, and she had actually done a lot of comedy shorts, like short films that were comedies, and I thought in those great funny moments that she has, she's got a character that I think, like, well, yeah, we'll do everything to make her look like Jade, but what she's going to bring is going to be her personality to this, and in seeing that, she really brought that spirit of Jade Drayton to life, who's this wily cyber renegade character. So she was a pleasure.
It's a tremendous cast. And what was your process in prep with the actors? Did you have table reads? Did you just do rehearsals? Let people sort of, any hacker training, or was it was it just sort of like, look, we don't have any time, wardrobe fitting, I'll meet you then, and then we're just go right into shooting? What was your prep with your actors like?
Right. Well, you know what, for certain characters, yes, I needed it. I needed it to have a lot of the other side characters and supporting actors rise to the level of like Greg Brick and so Tommy Amber as well. And both of them, working with those actors, like getting them familiar with what they're doing, the significance behind it. Like Wilma Pelly, who plays Kukum, working with her ahead of time was important to have her really grasp the long nature of her generation of the stories. So sometimes with these characters, we're seeing them in these films for only these brief periods and what they mean. So you have to work them ahead of time. And otherwise, when it comes to characters that have a lot of like mechanical things to do, I do like to do rehearsals ahead of time. Northlander, we had a lot of stunts. There was some days where we had 8 actors choreographed in fight scenes with stunt coordinators, and those were times where, we had to sequence everything ahead of time and work with stunt coordinators to make sure that it was right, and how the camera would come in at them and be in their place was a part of it. This one didn't have as many stunts, so I didn't need to do that too much. But other times, Greg Brick, actually, he showed up ready. I didn't have any rehearsal time with him, which is not uncommon.
He seems to wear his character well.
Well,
in your film.
I saw him in Code 8 as well, Jeff Chan's Code 8, and which they were making that film for a while as well, and so Greg is in across Canada. If you need someone who's rough around the edges and wily, look no further.
And I mean, Tommy had quite a lot of, intense scenes. She had a lot of emotional, intense scenes, and they were handled really, really well. And I'm wondering, what was your Greg seems like he's an old car that just, hums along the highway and it's all cruisy. But, for Tommy, it seemed like it was a bit, there's some character, some depth, and some confusions, and some struggles, and you really brought those out in certain scenes and sequences. What was that process like?
Right. Well, she definitely had a lot of questions that I think related to the amount of understanding she would have or not have up to certain points, and as the writer director, I had to always kind of like catch us up at what point, at what checkpoint are we in her understanding, as this is a mystery plot film. You do have to advise your characters only what they know up to that point, and when you're at the monitor, you're looking to see, does that understanding, like, does it come across? Is it, is the when the light bulb goes off, when they learn something, in her case, when she was I think there's a clip we haven't seen yet that I think we ought to roll after I mention this. You know, anytime a director's working with actors, they often have that question: how much do I know? You know, where am I at this very point? So when it comes to, you know, her understanding, especially because it's a mystery plot, you know, a lot of times the layers of the story get slowly revealed, and only so much, but only so little at the same time. So that was something with her where, you know, she really wanted to and did bring that yearning to learn, to know, because she had that vested interest. It was so near and dear. It was like this part of her past that it frustrated her because it was so close, and yet she didn't. It wasn't made obvious to her right off the bat, and so she had that friction all throughout the film as this feisty and frustrated researcher. And normally researchers are a little more on the level at first. That's who we see her as. So on that note, we'll play one of the clips, Ryan, and we'll get into Margot Elson's memories here. I think it's clip number 1. Or here. Yes, clip number 1.
I want you to think of something from your past, something you remember very, very well.
Yeah.
I think we already played this clip, Ben. Is this the right one?
This one, it would be one of the other clips that we haven't played so far.
Copy that.
Try clip 4.
Copy that.
Congratulations, you found your way in.
Place is really nice. You decorate yourself?
Huh. I'll run you through a newspaper roller if you want to be on the funny pages. What are you doing here?
We're looking for you.
Well, duh. Don't make me ask again, Tommy boy.
We're looking for information about a woman you might have heard of. Elise Perot.
Her name just sent a chill down my spine. Some names come with baggage. I know who you are.
How?
I got a helmet for you to crack.
Do you know what happened to her?
Memories are our past and our future. The answer, Margot, is in here.
Hey.
Don't be such a pedestrian. You've wandered into a war that no one knows is being waged. A war of conscience and knowledge. If you blink, your freedom will disappear. It will be taken. If you don't fight for your freedom, you've sided with them. This is the yellow brick road, baby.
Okay.
I was getting into it again. I wanted to see the rest of the scene. Yeah, so I working with your actors, I'm always curious about, you know, different directors' processes. You know, when you're marking up your scripts and you got your binder, because there's a photo of you, you know, on set with your binder, and so wondering what kind of notes are you making for your actors scene to scene? Are you noting this is the turning point of the scene? This is your, you know, what you're looking to get. These are your conflicts that you're, you know, each adjustment you're making. Are you using action verbs from the Truth Weston kind of, you know, how to direct actors? Like, what's your process with working with actors and prepping for yourself to work with actors on set?
Right. So I mean, acting, you know, very, it's emotional when you're there in the moment doing it. And I think that's where a lot of times, you know, and it's about style too. I mean, sometimes directing style is more mechanical, and I like a balanced approach of both. When I work, I like to explore the emotions of the actors with regard to if it's a scene of 2 or a scene of 3. You can decide from which perspective is the visual, the mentality, the eyes of the film, which way are they pointing in this scene, the perspective wise. And then, you know, with giving notes and adjustments, I usually like to let the actors explore during the first take, because they do prepare something ahead of time, and they usually like to get it out there at first. And I mean, you know, with some with the exception of the pros who are always just on, and they do great, and even on take 1, you know, most you know, by their, I'd say the second and certainly the third take, that's when they've really warmed up into what they're doing. So I let them explore during take 1, and then I kind of look for ways to obviously complement, but then also give an adjustment to try certain things. And if they're working, I'll say, look, this was working. Now this is like this one. Let's try approaching it from this other emotional angle, and give them some kind of keyword or key thought to focus on while they're doing it, because it'll prompt them, right? They need that urge in order to conjure the performance out of them, and so they usually try to implement that. And sometimes if they do it in that direction, and then they if it was good, but just for the sake of variety for the edit, you know, when we turn around on the other actor, sometimes I think it can introduce some really great editing possibilities to just try the performance emotionally from a different perspective for the sake of variety. And that way it can go back and forth between them. And that's talking, you know, once you're in the meat of a scene and the dialogue is starting, because when it comes to like the tail ends of scenes, like you're talking like how to flow the story, how to, you know, have maybe actors like they're going to say something and you're going to be on this big shot coming in of something. So, you know, that's where style is also real important too for the cinematography and like letting it speak. I mean, you're asking, you know, like you look at films like from the Coen brothers are a good example, right? They can take a single shot and make it look really meaningful. Just a single shot of a car driving down a snowy road in North Dakota. But the way that they frame the shot to introduce Jerry Lundegaard driving, and it's like this, the car is like really bottom of the frame, and then it's this huge sky right above him is sort of, you know, you can say so much with just the cinematography as well. So, you know, I think working methodically with collaborators, technically, artfully, is always really important. I do storyboard every scene and shot. Yeah, I definitely, I use programs to do that. And I arrive with a binder and I pull them out for the day and mark them up and say, oh, we can land here. But you don't marry yourself to those, right? You're only like your I don't know, your approach, right? But it leaves you with that spontaneity, right? Where you can still be spontaneous with your performers every time.
So when you're doing like a floor plan, bird's eye view, and then you're after that you're rendering out storyboards, and then you come with that kind of very kind of your clear vision of what you want with your actors working out I'm going to go into camera in a second, but I just wanted to sort of ask, just sort of close off on I'm just curious about your process. Are you sort of saying like, are you trying to convince the actors that this is the blocking that they want to do for their characters, or are you sort of like, you know, the rumor of Woody Allen that you're going to stand here, the shot's here, you're going to move there, and this is the way it's going to be because that's the way I planned it. What's your process in the blocking?
It's fluid. I usually will first step in with those storyboards for the blocking, but that's where the spontaneity kicks in is once I go through it with the actors, and then it allows us to decide how the sequence moves. There's a sequence in Parallel Minds. We don't have a clip for it now, but they arrive to an old homestead on a hill. And the way we shot that scene was like, we did the whole thing. It was like a 3.5 minute come up to the house, enter the house, walk through the door, look around the ground floor everywhere, and land in the kitchen. And And so doing that whole scene like that, it's a lot of moving parts with the performers and what they're feeling. And sometimes it's straightforward when they're coming into a new location. You know, a lot of times in films, there's characters exploring places they've never been before. So it's just where do they and how do they navigate that new place? That's where storyboards really come in handy. Lots of arrows, like arrows are just pointing in those all kinds of directions for camera.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
there, you let your actors definitely, like, you listen for sure, because that way it flows dramatically.
There's a lot of delicious blocking and coverage that you got, and quite a few scenes, and I really like the way that the car driving scenes were, with this kind of streaky light going on, and the great use of sort of, here's the here and now, so to speak, and then here's when you're under the influence of this this contact lenses, that AI thing. What was your process collaborating with your DP, Jeff Maher? What was that process like, to get into the look and the lensing? It sounds like you're also quite adept with, the gear talk. I'm just curious, how you went through that process.
Right. Well, Jeff and I, we took a look at different lens packages, and we thought the same way on a lot of wavelengths. He had this great idea where he thought, let's try to have this film feel like, for the most part, there's always some kind of movement going on. Creeper shots, a lot of them were happening that way, because it makes sense for the type of narrative that this is. A lot of slow reveals of things, or creep along movements. So in that sense, it made a lot of sense for him to want to do that, and I'm all in favor of that too. When it comes to certain things like the cameras we shot with, we usually use the digital cinema cameras, but we used old lenses to give some kind of a vintage look to certain scenes. It really brought out the bloom of the lights. So all those little details, add to the realism, because I do like to do things practically as well. It gets back to the magic of movies way back in the day when it used to be magic tricks. One thing towards the end of the film, not to spoil it, but there's an intense moment where Margot Elson, the actor, Margot is in a nightmare memory and being buried alive. And so in accomplishing that, it was a lot of technical moving parts where I remember, as a director, you have a vision, and you really want to stick to those certain things, and ultimately what'll, as far as style goes and framing and going for those moments, you'll be trying to be talked out of those moments a lot, and whether it's for health, for safety, for all those things. And the question is, what hills do you stand on when you have those creative things that you really want to do? And for me, it was fighting for the scene where she's buried alive. And so we tried all these different things. It had to be all health and safety, and of course, it ended up being this edible kind of oatmeal sawdust. But anyways, it looks like sand, and for all intents and purposes, it is. And so in doing that, it was this technical thing where we had to build a caged set around her, and Jeff had to frame up in certain places, and that's where you let these professionals do their job, and you end up with those performances from them, and let them be. That's where it's important for them too to shine.
Yeah, it looks great. There's really great stuff going there, and you can definitely see as you're describing when we opened, the sort of evolution of this film to that film. It's also the evolution of the director with more chops, and to see, like, even that little red electric in that last clip, that little red gate that was holding him back in that scene that you put in post. It's great. It's just all these little things. It's really well done. What was we're going to obviously get into the release and where people can see it coming up, but I also just want to give us a chance also to explore your work in post-production. The sound design is fantastic. Each room has a space, the characters, the thematics that are coming out in the score, very beautiful stuff. And just the pace of the editing. What was it like? You can take that any way you want, but your post-production workflow and sort of, it sounds like you also you have from coming from such a lower budget independent work mode, you're familiar with a lot of modes of filmmaking. You don't just hand somebody a drive and say, I'll see you in a month. I didn't get that sense from your bio and from your other work and hearing about you in the community, that you're sort of like, there's a lot of levels and skills that you're bringing to every film you do, which is quite astounding. What was your post process like?
Right. Well, yeah. And certainly, you know, as a Canadian, you're right. I mean, I came into this, you know, with just stories, right? Stories and the audacity to try and tell them in these fantastical ways and picking it up, you know, and each time having different scales and levels of resources to work with, ultimately does guide how the production and then post-production process goes. The two really work in tandem with one another. Talking about that earlier science fiction I did, there's 400 visual effects shots. I mean, you know, you get to a certain budget level where you still want to keep things on a manageable basis with how you do visual effects. You know, post-production wise, you know, in terms of storytelling, there's certain approaches creatively that can really enhance a film and be very easy and manageable. Those things are things like compositing, reframing, replacements, or even motion blur. Those can just enhance sequences fully and just bring something to life in literally minutes. Whereas, you know, sometimes if you're not careful, you might wander down the pathway of particles, flames, hair, creatures, fluids. Those are expensive. So, and yet, fire, animals, environmental, water, those are real. So be practical with those things. Find ways to be practical with those things is what you do when you're doing the shooting and you're designing it, storyboarding and everything. And then when you're in post-production, you know, you really have 150 shots to do something visual effects, and you know, certain amount of those shots are broken into your sequences that you work by, and you just decide what eggs to put in what basket. So then there's that, and then, you know, what sound design, as we know, is the total flow and feeling of a film. I mean, if you want to learn about how to edit a film, you mute the feature film you're watching, and you just watch it silent. You can just watch the edit go, and then you know, when it comes to music, you know, the music, you feel the whole film too, which, you know, that's really the flow of the emotions of all your actors and characters one by one through the film. And it's characteristic to each film, right? You know, when it comes to, you know, films like you know, film like, I look at recent films, Code 8 or Aquila's Escape or Target Number 1, which were all Canadian films that came out this year. Like, you know, a lot of them have these really driving, intense sound elements to them that are so important to the characters, and of course silence is also very important too when it comes to conveying things, not only having it be like a constant layer of things. So those are all part of your post-production, and also, you know, talking about theatrically releasing, when it comes to you know, films, also, you know, for those of us, you know, tuning in, some of the younger filmmakers out there, you know, when it comes to theatrically releasing in theaters versus digital on LCD screens and televisions, the movie projector actually will show films like, and it'll almost drop like two or three f-stops darker than if you're watching it digitally. So you almost need like two master files that you'll deliver to either your DCP master to your theatrical exhibitor, and then your digital master for your TV and your digital release, because the light's coming out of a screen versus being like projected at a silver screen, and you lose some light from the distance of it.
There's a couple questions in the Q&A. I just thought I would tackle some right now with you. One is, I'm assuming this is a no, but maybe there's a surprise thing that can happen here. Any clips from the first encounter that you can show, Benjamin?
Ooh, I can't. We would be close, but that one is still underway. And actually, I would, to be honest, if I had a clip uploaded right now, I would, if it was available. But for next year, it'll be for next year. So soon enough, I promise.
In the same person, the only name I see here is Sif Moderator. So hello, Sif. Sif also asks, was there any difficulties in funding the film in Alberta?
Well, I think, interesting question. And on that note, because it's the same regarding First Encounter, I do think I'd like to mention, because there has been a lot of changes in tax credits, and there always is changes throughout the years. And so Alberta recently had a change of government with the tax credit that was a 30% all spend, and it was, I would say, around the third or fourth most competitive in Canada, where you did have a lot of films that come up from LA and TV series coming up to shoot. When it comes to Canadian feature films, the incentive is the same. It's 30%, and so that's what we had for Alberta. There wasn't for Parallel Minds, because that was under the previous regime of the Alberta Media Fund system. It was very smooth, very dependable and predictable, no surprises. And so everything went really smoothly, tickety-boo with that one. But First Encounter, on the other hand, when it came to shooting that film, I mean, a large part of the reason why we shot my next feature film coming out next year in Manitoba was because the Manitoba tax credit certainly had one of the strongest, most competitive numbers in all of the country. We had 65% labor, which it was essentially twice the amount of tax rebate we would have got if we shot in Alberta or more. So it was a very obvious choice that way. And then to echo the question of difficulties, when it came to because this next movie it's an interprovincial co-production between Manitoba and Alberta. We were tapping into both streams of the tax credit, and the Alberta one literally switched during our filming. And a lot of productions, not only First Encounter, but a lot of them had, like, especially ones that were all Alberta shot. Some of them were at the Calgary Film Festival this very year. They had a huge shakeup where, they probably had tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax credit that they were counting on that they would have probably already spent in production, basically reduced to their 24%. They call it like a selective tax credit, but that's thankfully for Parallel Minds, it was smooth. Yeah, it was smooth.
And so we got to look to be wrapping things up, and I'm wondering if you want to share with us all where we can see Parallel Minds and what its rollout is going to be. I know everything's subject to change with COVID stuff, but what's the plan moving ahead looking like?
Right. Well, when it comes to releasing the film, so at the moment, the film's an official selection in 13 international film festivals, including Fantaspoa, the largest film festival of sci-fi fantasy in South America, and also in the Caribbean, in Brazil, in Toronto, at the Blood in the Snow Festival that's taking place in late October, and also Cinefest Sudbury. And so there's a really great representation of the film also at Indigenous film festivals, including the 45th American Indian Film Festival, which is the largest Indigenous festival in USA, as well as the Native Spirit Film Festival and the Red Nation Film Festival. And then throughout October, we're already confirmed in 13 cities across Canada for our theatrical release with Landmark Cinemas. So the audiences will be able to pick up the newspapers and look at when the film's opening in their cities. And it's always opening on a Friday for the run. So that's where people can see it live and in person, which is a really important aspect of this year, I think, with what's going on with theatricals, Shane. And it's great to know your thoughts too. We have a minute on how the theatrical system has had a very interesting go this year, and how we're used to adapting with what we're handed. That's the nature of being a film director. So that's something that's been great too. Where with festivals like Calgary and also others like Vancouver, committing to theatrical releasing and having the real festival experience is just an incredible wonderful honor of the real movie-going experience. So that's been great. And the film will also be available on APTN for broadcast and primetime in December, along with the Hollywood Suite. And so that's how people can watch the film.
Is there a website you want to, like, if anyone wants to sort of see how to get to those festivals?
Right. So when it comes to a website, I would suggest going on to Level Film. I think their website is level.film. So very easy, level.film. And then also you could do a Google search of Parallel Minds, and you would likely come up with Landmark Cinemas where it would appear in your city, or it would be available on Hollywood Suite, APTN, on streaming as well. So there's plenty of ways to watch it. I think it'll also be on TELUS and Shaw and those kinds of digital platforms as well, through Level Film distributed. So there's plenty of ways to watch the film. It's just a matter of how big you want the screen to be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Benjamin, congratulations, man. You got 2 feature films, and you have a 3rd one you're in post-production, and 2 more that are in development. It's you're just an unbelievable creator of content and stories and screen stories, and it's great to see you doing what you're doing, man. Congratulations on this film. It's wonderful.
Thanks. Well, love being in league with you guys. I mean it. It's great to be a Canadian storyteller, and so here we are telling our stories.
Well, that's fantastic.
Hans,
here I am. Out of the Zoom.
Hello.
Thank you so much, Shane and Benjamin, for that fantastic conversation. Really, really wonderful to hear you guys talking about that. Shane, always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you so much for guiding us through that. And Benjamin, congratulations, and thank you for such amazing, intriguing, and important work on all of your films. Everybody watch Benjamin's films, watch Shane's films for that matter. Amazing work from both of these incredible filmmakers. On October 8th, coming up, join us for a conversation between incredible documentary directors Liz Marshall and Shelley Saywell, talking about Liz's new film, Meet the Future. That's MEAT, Meet the Future. It's a fascinating topic and an amazing film. Find the links and videos to all DGC Visionaries 2020 sessions at dgc.ca Visionaries 2020. Benjamin and Shane, thank you so much for spending this time with us and sharing all of your wisdom. Really, really appreciate it. Be well.
Thank you, Hans.
Take care.
Total pleasure. Total honor. Have a good one. Thank you.
You too.